Yeah, I'm trying to get it onto presentation mode.
You have to go to slideshow on the top.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, please note, everyone, that this webinar will be recorded. We will now start the presentation, and then after the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. Next slide. So Zambia is located in southern Africa, as you can see, and it borders Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Malawi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, and Tanzania. So it's quite enclosed in many other countries. Next slide. To put things into perspective, put together a few facts about Zambia for you. The total area is almost twice as large as Germany's, whereas the population is only about a quarter of the population in Germany. The official business and I would say working language is English, but only a small part of the population actually speaks English as their mother tongue. The majority speak Bantu languages such as Bemba or Nyana, and actually there's a total over 70 indigenous languages counted in Zambia. But don't you worry, everyone will speak English when you visit and come to Zambia. The currency is the kwacha, and the current exchange rate is €1 to 22 kwacha, which is pretty much identical with the South African rand. And the population is pretty much inverse to the German population, with 42% of the population being 0 to 14 years old. So the population is very young, as typical for many African countries. The unemployment rate is at 6.1%, which is pretty much double to how it is in Germany, and the youth employment rate is at 11%. Next slide, please. Zambia is the third largest economy in Southern Africa, but that being said, so it's third largest after South Africa and Angola. But that being said, there's a relatively large gap between South Africa and Zambia. Zambia is quite small as an economy. The driving force for the economy in Zambia is copper mining, with a big advantage. And then in addition to the mining sector, the agricultural sector and the food industry also hold very great potential for growth. The biggest issues in all of those sectors are the transport costs and inefficient logistics that cause the most problems. But good prospects generally are opening up for agriculture, food production, and extension of the mining sector. The government of Zambia wants to expand the mining sector actually by extracting more minerals next to copper, like gold or cobalt or zinc, especially through new economic policies such as the planned development of local value chains for batteries. Obviously, we all know about that with electronic cars and e-mobility. Zambia also wants to join that club and provide new perspectives. Because of the mining sector and the agricultural sector, the economic development in Zambia depends heavily on commodity prices as well as the development of public debt. What is generally needed here in all sectors are facilities for additional processing steps, and as well as corresponding transport infrastructure and reliable energy and water supply, which causes a big problem, as you will also see when you come to Zambia. Zambia has been struggling with a very high national debt in recent years, as you can see here under Staatsverschuldung. This has been caused, among other things, by a slump in copper export earnings, government mismanagement, and a credit-financed infrastructure expansion. Zambia was actually the first African country since the corona pandemic to default on debts for foreign creditors. They were not able to pay them back. The government was therefore challenged to set the course for necessary reforms and they did that through reforms in public finances, dealing with investors, and a greater diversification. And surprisingly, 2 years later, now Zambia is doing surprisingly well. Practically all economic indicators are in a positive trend, which after such a big debt crisis is quite unusual. This is also partly due to the fact that the International Monetary Fund has granted the country a loan of $1.3 billion to stabilize the state finances, which is why Zambia is now quite stable. Next slide, please. The relationships between Germany and Zambia are historically not as strong as between Germany and other African countries, for example, with like South Africa or Namibia. But there are some relations and some features that can be highlighted. Germany generally exports industrial goods to Zambia, like machinery, vehicles, and chemical products. And in return, Germany imports raw materials such as copper and cobalt from Zambia. And these raw materials are used in Germany to produce electronics or automobiles. Germany has also made some investments in Zambia, especially in the mining and energy sectors. Nevertheless, German investments in Zambia have been rather low compared to other African countries. Germany does have diplomatic relations with Zambia, especially in development cooperation. The focus here is on promoting education, health, and agriculture. Next slide, please. So by African standards, Zambia is an established democracy and offers a quite comparatively stable and investment environment since the independence from Great Britain. So in about 60 years of independence, there haven't been any major violent confrontations or conflicts, which is great. I will spare you long historical explanations. I don't think this is the place to do that, but Zambia has faced economic challenges over the years, including high poverty and inflation due to falling commodity prices and debt problems, as I pointed out earlier. But at the moment, Zambia is doing surprisingly well and is on the way up. Currently, we can say that the political and economic situation remains dynamic and efforts continue to strengthen the democracy and address economic challenges. The current government under President, I hope I say his name right, Hakainde Hichilema, wants to invest more in health and education. And this is, of course, not only a political gain for the new government, but also gives very positive impulses for the investment climate in the country. Next slide, please. Now, my colleague, Mr. Weber, our local representative in Lusaka, will tell you more about the education and training sector and mention some specific market opportunities. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you, Carolina, for the insights. Let's dive a bit into what we are here for, mostly the Aus- und Weiterbildung sectors, educational and vocational training sectors. Next slide, please, Alexa. I hope my internet also plays along. For now, obviously, since Carolina already mentioned it, we'll be primarily focused on mining and agribusiness as the main two contributing factors to the local economy here. But we will also be talking about maintenance, processing, IT, or generally technique, the provision of hardware to educational centers, as well as e-learning. Next slide. All right, talking about the mining sector. There is a big demand for vocational services provided in the mining sector, primarily because the mining sector is organized in a way that it is detached from other training institutes, in the sense that most mines, the bigger ones especially, train their geologists and their mining workforce in-house. That means, if we were to translate it to our event, vocational training, the development of vocational courses, the enhancement of the quality of these training programs, there's a high demand for that. Since there is also the plan that Carolina mentioned of increasing the production in the mining sector, there's a bigger demand now than ever for geologists and for skilled workforce in the technical areas of the mining sector. So any company, any German company in our case, that can offer services in that light to tailor courses for specific technical know-how in various sectors, but here we're focused on mining, would definitely have a market entry opportunity here. And because of the rise in interest on thematics regarding climate, with climate change and everything, and of course the renewed and emphasized focus on sustainability, especially in the mining sector. These topics are also creating opportunities for knowledge transfer in environmental management, in circular economy, or generally recycling, or waste management and treatment, as well as environmental protection. Next slide, please. We had suggested to include Mopani's Central Training Center, MCTC, from Mopani Copper Mines as a best practice example here. You will also get a chance to go through the training center once you're actually here in Zambia. Based on their website, it is a highly modern vocational center. I think we'll leave the judgment to ourselves once we see it. Basically, just as I mentioned in the slide earlier, it offers in-house vocational training of skilled workforce for the operation of mines. That's usually done in either long-term courses. I think they go up to 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, and short-term courses, which are more, tailored to the needs of, heavy-duty equipment operation and stuff like that. That usually doesn't go more than 2 weeks to 2 months, pardon me. And in the end, the training center transfers knowledge in engineering, metallurgy, I think it's called in English, and mining skills to its workforce. Next slide, please. Okay, talking about the agribusiness sector, the agricultural sector, it's very important to mention that Zambia's potential in agriculture is still very undervalued or underperforming, especially because the country has vast opportunities in considering agribusiness projects way bigger than the scale they are already at. That said, the Ministry of Agriculture, up to date, remains the biggest player in the agribusiness sector, mainly because of the collective system here in Zambia. In agriculture, the collective farm system. And that's, if we set that aside, there's still a high potential for private innovative investment. That is also seen with the new government, with the creation of agri sectors, huge landscapes that are just assigned for agriculture. There are tax incentives as well in regard to bringing in agricultural equipment. These are not taxed at all when they are imported. There's also a VAT reduction for agribusiness companies and food processing companies. So all in all, this encouragement is also creating a boom in the workforce sector for more skilled workforce in the agricultural sector. And if you wrap all this together, you can see that there is a positive outlook for Zambia when it comes to its agricultural sector, and that the demand for skilled workforce there is quite high. Next slide, please. Okay, best practice example again. We're talking about the German Agricultural Knowledge and Training Center, AKTC. This is based in Chisamba, not so far from Lusaka, around 40 minutes from here. And it came to fruition after a cooperative program or agreement was signed bilaterally between the Bundesministerium für Ernährung und Landwirtschaft, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture in Germany, and its local Zambian counterpart here, the Ministry of Agriculture in Zambia. And the training center focuses on knowledge transfer, but still with keeping in mind that it doesn't just demolish old traditional practices, but tries to blend in agricultural knowledge, which is based on scientific agricultural knowledge with common practices here to increase efficiency and also sustain the agricultural process. And it trains, of course, Landwirte, well, peasants, I suppose is the word, consultants, agricultural consultants, as well as training staff or educational staff, Dozenten. All right, next slide, please. We're gonna merge processing, maintenance, and IT together. As this slide kind of emerged through my first meeting with the Director General of Teveta, which is the authority here in Zambia for TVET. And based from what he told me, there is a very, very broad, and I'm speaking very generally here, there's a broad interest in updating curricula, be it in universities or the technical colleges, to fit today's world a bit more. That means there's more focus on AI, more focused on machine learning, smart agriculture. There's a huge interest in that, and the opportunities are like raising the demand even higher. I know that, yes, I'm gonna answer it right away, Peter. There will be a chance to meet him. He'll probably be, Peter asked if we can meet the Director General of Teveta. Yes, there will be a chance. I'll say more about that later on. All in all, from what I understood from that meeting, there are a lot of private companies that also approach Teveta to ask for cooperations, which are very tailored to their interests. Say a mining company wants geologists and shows readiness in investing into a technical college in their area to create jobs in the area. That keeps happening here. And the private sector, public sector interaction here is actually very beneficial, even if most of the money comes from the private sector then. I had included as the last point, as you can see here, that mainly the focus is on agriculture and food processing when it comes to Tevet and CATS programs, if we put the mines aside, because they have their own thing going on. But that doesn't mean that there aren't more opportunities in other sectors. Next slide, please. All right, regarding the equipment of training centers, there's a huge demand for computerization and developing IT infrastructure. I'm sure that Michael Kratz is smiling right now, although he does government mainly. But that, from your experience, I'm sure that you can share that. The main issue with Zambia's education sector came to rise after the corona pandemic, where most of the school system just shut down. Even the international schools, which are private, we're not really expecting to switch totally from analog to digital overnight. And that, I think, opened the eyes for everybody here that it is essential to take that up. Multimedia equipment is needed to be integrated also into the learning process to adapt it more to what is to be expected in tertiary studies later on, or even in vocational training, be it in Zambia or abroad. And I had also included as a point here that libraries here are still analog. So there's a huge demand also for digitalizing library resources. I hope that also works well as an overview. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, coming to e-learning, kind of also banking on what I just mentioned in the slide before. The demand for technology and infrastructure for digital education is fair. There are online courses being offered by certain universities here. It's still in the infant stage, though, and has way more potential for development. And all in all, the demand for digitalizing administration is quite high. I had included that especially for Michael Kratz because of your presentation the other day. It's really noticeable here that the focus is high on digitalization. I would even go as far as saying more than I hear it in Germany, honestly, other than just, the quarrels about the topic. Yeah, some universities even, as I mentioned, offer online modules. These still need a bit of, knowledge transfer, know-how, that can be exchanged between German and Zambian counterparts. I'm sure these type of discussions can be very beneficial. And the sector is very open, be it publicly or private sector here. It is very open for suggestions in that regard. Yeah. Okay, I think next slide should revert back to Carolina. That would be my part. I hope it was beneficial enough, and I'm handing over to you, Carolina, again. Thanks. You're muted.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Yeah, I just realized. Thank you so much. It was very beneficial. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. We are almost reaching the end of our presentation. I just want to give a brief summary or like a selection of the strengths and weaknesses of the market, and then finish with some cultural aspects that are important and relevant for you to know when you visit Zambia. To the strengths and weaknesses, as mentioned earlier, Zambia has a very stable political environment and investment climate, which invites foreign investors to come and build small and medium enterprises and invest in the sector. Another point is that there are many opportunities through the plans of the government with regards to the extension of the mining sector, for example, or the extension of the agricultural sector, or the demand for education centers and IT systems. So there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of demand. Towards the weaknesses, infrastructure and connectivity is still a big issue. Zambia does face challenges related to infrastructure development and connectivity, especially in rural and remote areas. The road network is basically well developed and you can reach remote areas without problems, but the limited access to electricity and internet connection and basic amenities often causes problems. And then another big problem is the funding and affordability issue. The affordability of education remains a major challenge in Zambia. Many families struggle to pay the school fees and uniforms and textbooks and other educational materials. So if you do, as a German company, want to engage in this sector, you should consider the issue of affordability and develop sustainable and inclusive pricing models. The good thing is that the government is aware of these issues and is trying to bring about change. Efforts are being made to increase investment prospects in the country. The main objective of the government is to build a diversified and resilient economy for growth and socioeconomic change. And these are driven by agriculture, mining, and tourism, and are supported in particular by the pillar of improving educational capital. Next slide, please. Our last slide is about cultural aspects. It's always important to know when we do bilateral exchange, because every country and every culture is different. Zambians are known for their warm-heartedness, and respectful and friendly interactions are often reciprocated and can definitely positively influence business relationships. As in the rest of Africa, flexibility and patience are advantages in this business environment, because the understanding of time in Zambia can differ from Western norms. Often flexibility is more important than punctuality, especially because decisions are often made at higher levels and the person you are speaking to is not always in the position to make a decision right away. So patience is a virtue here. We know that especially for Germans, that is sometimes very hard, but if you are a little bit of patient, you make your life a lot easier. Then another cultural aspect is that older people, especially in leadership positions, are highly valued, and respectful interactions are crucial for success in business relationships. And even though English is the official language, showing interest in local languages and cultures can definitely win the respect of the business partners and obviously show interest in the person opposite you. And the communication style is respectful but direct. So you will definitely you will definitely cut to the chase right away, but you will be respectful and friendly. And building trust in a personal relationship in Zambia is quite central. Hassa can definitely say more to that if anyone has questions, but it's often easier to form business relationships if you have met the person before in person. That's why it's very great that we have this delegation happening now. So you actually have the opportunity to meet people. Okay, and with this, I'm concluding the presentation of this webinar, and we'll open the Q&A session.
All right. Are there any questions? I'll actually start with Peter's question, although I had already answered it. But if I may, I'll mainly focus on one important aspect here. Don't expect that MOUs will be signed right away after the delegation. That's very important to say. It's very important that you just show that you're serious about your ambitions in Zambia and that you're more open to discuss it further. And then follow-ups are very important. Per email is going to be hard. So being here in person is always recommended, even if you were to stay or come back to Zambia, just to establish a better relation with your counterparts. It's highly commendable to do that. Yeah. All right. I'll start
also
with you,
maybe
Peter.
add to that, Hassan, maybe just also was something I noticed a lot when I first started working in the region is a lot of people work on WhatsApp and not on emails. So you phone, quick text messages. That really is the best way. And if they don't respond, you go knock on their door physically. You would never do that in Germany because, you know, we have no appointment. But in Zambia, that really is how it's done. So just another extra added information. Peter.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Hassan for this really insightful presentation. And I think particularly in the TVET part, there was quite a few clues and opportunities already for the businesses. And some of them you mentioned them explicitly, like in the mining sector. But with regards to the agricultural sector, I've read some articles that global agribusiness is also sort of discovering Zambia at the moment. And I think this was a topic in the virtual seminar in the last MEP sort of activity for TVET in Zambia. I was wondering if we will have a chance to meet representatives from this German agricultural training center, but maybe also have access to like other sort of institutions that focus on the maintenance aspect of the mechanization in agriculture, which seems to be a big thing. I've also heard that some of the global big tractor companies are running some activities trying to push the imports of this machinery. I wonder if there's also linkages to these sort of private sector activities when it comes to training of maintenance stuff.
Okay, thanks for the question. This question is actually quite good because it touches on who's already involved here, especially from the German side, as well as potential opportunities for even exporting, let's say, German machinery here for agricultural purposes. Now, the AKTC, yes, they will be around primarily on the first day for the reception at the ambassador's residence. I'm sure that the director of the GIZ, who are also involved in agriculture, can say more. But also the director of the AKTC is going to be present. You don't have many German agricultural companies here, and the ones you have are mostly in Solwezi. It's quite far from where we are. And I can only, out of my head, I can only name Amatheon as one of the main players here. Regarding agricultural equipment, it is true that the market is being flooded by agricultural machinery, but that's mostly Indian and Chinese markets. And that was actually very interesting to see during the agricultural fairground, which happened not so long ago. There was not a single German company. I expected maybe even at least Liebherr to be there for, you know, for the fact that they are very big in mining equipment. But unfortunately, there was no one really during the trade show. Instead, you had dozens of Indian and Chinese companies. They had a whole rugby field to themselves, displaying all the agricultural equipment there. That's something I think that is also related to competitive pricing in the machinery. That's something just to keep in mind. Yeah, that's, if I were to answer your question, I hope I did answer it, but that's like, generally speaking, the case.
May I ask something as well? Actually, I have three questions. The first one is about the debt rate of Sambia. Yeah. The second one, what is the involvement of the private sector in the TVET field and or polytechnic schools? And how much wants the government invest in the education sector out of the GDP? Do you know? Do you have this information? Because if you have here in 22 119% of debt rate, how Zambia can get some financial support from private banks and even the IMF? What is the involvement of IMF? I mean, if I look back to Ghana, Ghana is running with 98% of debt rate, and the IMF was there in order to help them with 5.4 billion USD for 7 projects what belongs to the social part in Ghana. So if they have 119% of debt, what is the involvement of IMF? What is the capacity to get some? Because if we go there and we have financial solutions in order to invest in the TVET sector, how do they want to finance that if they don't have the money?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I can tell you, first of all, regarding the IMF involvement. The IMF is the facilitator of the, right now they're playing the part as a facilitator of the investment climate, because the focus now is not just on Zambia's credit performance in the recent years. It's more also a geopolitical decision to keep, the Zambian current Zambian investment climate friendly, so that the country does not go into a debt spiral that could skew it towards other economic players in the region. And that's very important to keep in mind, because if one revisits Zambia's performance in the past and looks at the private banking ratings for Zambia, one realizes that with a C rating, the investment climate, or there's even an Arabic saying, I know, that capital is a coward. So it's very hard to convince capital to come here. That's really the case. What is helping, though, right now is the change in government, because with the new president, the prospects into the future have become realizable again, because mismanagement is being addressed, and the country seems to have a plan as to where it sees itself in the next 7 years, let's say, until 2030. And taking that into consideration, with the also the presence of other key funding institutions here, like the DEG and the KfW, which are also opening their eyes again on Zambia. There might be even a more, there's a potentiality of investment with PPPs in certain sectors even. All in all, I would say that it is being skewed back towards actual investments taking place. Nevertheless, it's because you had touched on that, Antonio. You mentioned that how do you actually convince people to bring money here and invest if the counterparts might not be able to bring up the funds on their own? And I think a decision like that would really have to be discussed, especially if the investments are considered with the higher ups in government here, in the sense that there have to be guarantees from the Zambian side as to how things like these happen. But from our experiences so far, most projects are common projects, which are funded from external institutions as a third party, and where the collaboration among German, let's say, and Zambian entities are more on the administrative or the executive level of the project, guaranteeing that the project actually takes place, etc. Yeah. It's still early to say as to how long it will take until the private sector in its own starts delving into Zambia by its own. But I still would want to keep an emphasis on the opportunity of this still being like a very infant stage for a country with huge potential for growth that is about to be witnessed in the next 10 years. Being part of it now will have big benefits in the medium future, and I wouldn't say that in the short term that it would show right away. But if you invest in education, you can also expect that with the growing sectors that you will be part of all this. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Mücke, go ahead.
Yes, hello, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Our time in Lusaka will be rather limited, yeah, even for the B2B meetings. It's just that from as I understand, from 8 to 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
on the 26th, yeah. And for us, it's most important. These, those are the main reason for participating in this journey or the B2B meetings. We need to meet important players in the field. And I don't think that it's possible to meet more than, or depending on the traffic, I don't know the Lusaka's traffic and situation at the moment, but more than 2 within this time if we have to drive from one, institution or organization to the other. Would there be flexibility to support us in arranging meetings even before the trip starts, so on the 21st and on the 22nd? Would that be possible? Because I will come earlier to Zambia.
I think as preliminary meetings, it can be done. I just want to shed your attention to something, which is, yes, you will have limited time in Lusaka to meet counterparts, but since you also be in Kitwe, and Kitwe is rather a very established local economy because of it being the heart of the copper belt region and the mining sector there are a lot of private health institutions also in Kitwe, which will also be present during the presentation and B2B event on the 26th when we are in Kitwe. And you will also get a chance to meet the established, stakeholders in the private health sector there. Regardless, I think after this meeting, we can discuss this even with Alexa to see if we can also do something preliminarily.
Yeah, that would be great.
Before,
thank you.
Yeah, but I'm actually
Usually,
very relaxed.
If I can chime in there, usually we're quite flexible with that because it sometimes happens that one B2B contact, for example, will only be available before the conference or after the conference. And it's cases like you happen quite frequently that some people come before or stay longer. And as long as we know when you're going to be there and who you'd like to meet, we can definitely support you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
But I think also there is important that the national government at the moment is on a health strategy to employ, I read this article last week, 30,000 new nurses in the next 3 years. I mean, to find the people, 30,000 people is one challenge, but they also have to teach them. Yeah. I think that's also very interesting to meet here then in Lusaka, the right people on the higher level. They involved in a program like this. And one other word to the investments, there is also a government program in place called CDF. There is also a big opportunity. CDF is a program implemented by the national level for the municipal level, yes, for the districts, and they can apply for a budget for anything what they need. So, and that's then also, I think, one point to contact and to communicate. There are many opportunities also in the country at the moment, based on the new government and the new president, to find a way to invest in the country itself. Not only funded by outside institutions. What I heard as example last week is that BMZ at the moment is a little bit busy to cut budgets. I mean, in the German news at the moment, they talk about the budget for next year in our parliament at the moment. But there is other opportunities also in the country to find a way for a business that financed from internally, not only from outside.
Great, thank you for that hint. You know, we know of this nursing program, and that's why we are, you know, extremely interested in meeting the
it's
health
also
equity
eventually
MOU.
interesting for you when you're in the health sector. Here is a school. This school is running since 30 or 40 years by a German director. He is over 60, and they also specialized in to teach nurses or people that work in the health sector.
Sounds
Which
great.
school is that, Michael? Just
Wait, I must have a look. Give me a second.
yeah, because that sounds
I will
very,
have
very
a look.
interesting for us as well.
Yeah. They also have that more like they teach from the ground up until to university status. They can also make a diploma or anything there. I had one meeting with him weeks ago, and they have maximum and around about 4,000 people in their different schools, but it's not a small ones. Yeah. But wait, I will have a look.
Well, whenever you get the name, do let us know, even here during the meeting. As for now, are there any other questions?
I think Lutz, you had your hand up, or was it a previous hand?
Oh, that was the previous one. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. If
Another, Carol, I'm handing back to you.
If there aren't any other questions also relating to the trip while we are all sitting here together, you can go forward and ask it, but otherwise I suggest we conclude, and we're obviously always available for follow-up questions. I will send out the handout for this webinar in the next hour, and then you can also have a read through it and look up. It'll be a little bit more extensive than this presentation, obviously. So you have the chance to look up a little bit more information and maybe read up some sources. And yeah, other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in Zambia and meeting you in person. But before we conclude, Peter Pfaffer has a question.
Yeah, just a very small one. Are you going to set up a WhatsApp group or a group on any other messenger to make our communication easier while we're there?
Yeah, so maybe just while I talk, well, that's maybe a good point. Thanks. We'll send out an email later this week with all the information that we have so far, including Sicherheitshinweise, the handout. I mean, the handout will come today, but Sicherheitshinweise, you know, notes to the mine visit, what can be expected, what should be worn. And what we'll also include is a MS Forms link. So you can please include all your flight details, because we would need that for the transport schedule. So we need to know what your flights are, when you arrive, when you depart. And then what we'll also include is to please share your telephone number so that we can add you to a WhatsApp group.
Excellent.
We won't start the WhatsApp group yet. It's a bit early, so.
Yeah, no worries.
But we'll start it like the weekend before, the Friday before we go, something like that.
Cool.
For Datenschutz considerations, we'll start just before. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, then I wish everyone a beautiful rest of your Wednesday. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great day.
Okay.
Bye.
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 you.
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Bye bye.